side, couple with a brick, brew and a friend, bleed orange and blue to the bitter end. Come and join us, DNVR. We are DNVR.
We are DNVR. We are live from Studio A here at the DNVR Bar. And the A today stands for Available Superstar.
Oh, sign me up.
Available Superstar. We'll get to that in just a second. But first, a shout out to our friends over at MSU Denver Online, a long time presenting sponsor of the show. They don't get enough credit for how long they have been riding with us as the presenting sponsor. They love the show. They love the support from the DNVR fam. And they love seeing you guys apply over at MSU Denver. So check them out. 750 total classes, 45 plus online and hybrid programs. And as you guys know, there is absolutely no better place to further your education. If you're looking to work a full-time job at the same time, MSU Denver students work twice as many hours as students attending any other college institution. Check them out. msudenver.edu/online.
My boys, what is going on? So pumped to be rolling with the three of us today.
Yes, I love it. And we have an interesting conversation today. And why I think this is interesting is, like, one thing that I love about this show is that if people are talking about something, we can just talk. We can instantly pivot, and that's what we're talking about.
Yep.
And that's what's happening today is, of course, the news comes out. Maybe I should have thrown to Zach in sports for this one, but I'm on a roll. The news comes out that Deebo Samuel is requesting a trade from the San Francisco 49ers, and this has been something that's been kind of like bubbling for a little while, and it finally bubbles over. Last night, it was like his brother on Facebook telling people they're going to request a trade. Then this morning, it becomes actual news. I think it was it Jeff Darlington? Or
Yep.
Jeff Darlington.
Yeah, Jeff Darlington has the news. Deebo Samuel is requesting a trade. And like I said, I love that we can just instantly be like, oh, this is what's happening on Twitter. This is what people are talking about in Broncos Country. So let's talk about it. And obviously the question is, if Deebo Samuel is available for trade, should the Denver Broncos be in on it? Zach, I'll start with you.
Absolutely 100%. There's no questions asked about this. George Paton should be getting his personnel group together right now, talking about what they're willing to give up. Bring Nathaniel Hackett in here. Bring Justin Outen in that room. And then he should be putting in a call later this afternoon to John Lynch to pry Deebo away from the 49ers.
No way.
Love
No
this.
way.
Love this.
No way.
All right.
Let's
hear it.
Wide receiver, look, it's a dependent position ultimately. Like, yes, Deebo can do a few more things, but you're probably going to have to pay him Tyreek Hill type of money. And the other thing is, you're trading for him, great. What are you trading for him? You don't have, right now, in terms of draft capital, and the 49ers would like a first-round pick, you don't have a first-round pick for the next 2 years.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think the other thing is, in a vacuum, in theory, maybe it sounds interesting, but the practicality of it, you're going to give up your first-round pick in 2024, and I don't think the 49ers want that. I think this is DOA.
So that is what my whole question boils down to, is what is the price of the trade? We know what the wide receiver market looks like now. Now, it's a little different for Deebo because he's not only a wide receiver, which might get him more money, or, a contract negotiator could say, well, that's more tread on the tires, all those carries you're getting. We don't like that, so we're actually going to pay you less money. Good luck. But my question is, what does it cost? Because that's going to give you your answer. First of all, you're probably going to get rid of one of your wide receiver contracts, right?
Yep.
So in the trade, you'd like to send them Courtland Sutton or Tim Patrick. The only thing is, I think because you don't have that first-round pick, you might have to give them something super valuable that's young and cheap, which would be Jerry Jeudy. So you're going to give Jerry Jeudy, but the problem with that is now you would have three massive wide receiver contracts on the team. So maybe it's like a 3-team trade or something where you're sending Courtland Sutton somewhere. But you don't want to. Would you want to trade Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy?
Ideally not, but I think this is easy of who you're trading. Courtland Sutton is the center of this deal. Now, it's not just going to be Courtland Sutton for Deebo Samuel, but look, what have we said about Tim Patrick? He's like a Courtland Sutton light. and his contract reflects that. Now, not a total light, just a little bit less of a Courtland Sutton. So you trade Courtland Sutton. He also is your biggest contract that you have, so you offload that. But look, the 49ers, they're willing to pay Deebo Samuel at least up to a point, so they'll be willing to pay Courtland Sutton $15 million. They get a good receiver back for him. The Broncos free up about $15 million. So when you talk about paying Deebo $30 million, it's just $15 million more than Courtland Sutton. It's not $30 million in new money, but you're right, Ryan. You do have to trade either Courtland Sutton or Tim Patrick. It can't be Jerry Jeudy because you can't have all three of those guys. And then you have Tim Patrick as an outside guy. You have Jerry Jeudy as the masterful route runner. So you have the big, tall guy and Tim Patrick, the route runner and Jerry Jeudy. And then you add Deebo, the freak, the weapon all over the field. I don't know how you can just shut the idea of that down right away.
Why would the 49ers take that?
Well, so what I was going to ask you is what else?
That's the starting piece. What else do they want? Is it picks? I would do picks. I'm not sure George Paton would do picks, and obviously I think it would have to be more recent picks. You don't have a second-round pick next year, maybe 64 and a third. If that would do it, absolutely. If you're talking players, Draymond Jones, he's a guy who we talked to yesterday. He is a potentially very valuable piece. I mean, what would it take to get done? Because I'm willing to talk about it. Now, if it's talking Pat Surtain, obviously not. This isn't a quarterback where Pat Surtain was on the table for me with Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson. He's not on the table here. But Draymond Jones, Courtland Sutton, look, the 49ers, they don't have all the leverage anymore. They have lost some since this news has got out. So they may not get a fair value, especially because the team taking on Deebo Samuel knows they have to pay him. The 49ers have lost a lot of momentum here.
They've lost momentum, but at the same time, the Chiefs lost momentum when word got out that Tyreek Hill was seeking a trade. It didn't keep them from getting.
They didn't get a first-round pick. They didn't get a massive haul. To me,
I
think they lost on that
They
trade.
got a good haul for a player who's older.
But don't you think Courtland Sutton and Draymond Jones is a good haul?
Yeah.
If I'm the 49ers, I'm like, if you don't have a first-round pick, we're not making this deal.
And that's not the question, is would the 49ers make the deal? The question is, should the Broncos be trying to make a deal? And knowing what we know of George Paton, the answer would be yes. He says we're going to be in on every deal. And so all you can do is put together what you think is a good offer, and a good offer for the Denver Broncos, but also one that you believe is fair value, and send it over. And so my answer to this is yes. Should you be in on it? Should you be interested in it? Of course. You want to find out what the market says. You want to if you go to them and you say, hey, we'll give you Courtland Sutton and Draymond Jones, I love that deal for the Broncos. And they say, sorry, we've got someone willing to pay 2 firsts. You say, great. Thanks for answering the call. We'll talk to you guys later.
The Chiefs did get a first-round pick, by the way, for Hill. First, second, and fourth.
First, second, and fourth. End of the first, right?
Yeah, but first round.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And look, in any Broncos pick you're talking about, even in 2024, you're hoping it's the end of the first.
For sure.
So,
I guess my thing is what it has been all along is you're now in a Super Bowl window. You should be making any move possible to do so. And if you were able to put Courtland Sutton in this deal, it is the difference of $15 million. It maybe, if he's getting full-on Tyreek Hill money. I think there's a difference between Tyreek Hill and Deebo Samuel, but not a huge one. So maybe it's 25, 26, 27. That's an upgrade of $12 million a year for a player who I feel like we should remember carried the San Francisco 49ers to the NFC Championship game. He was their offense. He was their big play guy. He was their important guy. So I think you should absolutely be interested. I'm not married to the current wide receiver core. Wow, though it is just fine. You know what I mean? If you don't make this deal, I'm not saying, what are you doing? You have a need at wide receiver. I'm just saying, yeah, you should definitely make the call and find out what the price is.
Right, exactly. And with Deebo, he is a guy, I'm not for paying great wide receivers. I don't like that. I am for paying elite wide receivers and elite players all across the board. You can't let elite players go, but you also can't pay great players elite money. Deebo Samuel last year was 100% elite. Like you said, he not just had the stats, but he carried the 49ers. In terms of the stats, he absolutely had the stats. He had the 3rd most yards from scrimmage last year in the entire NFL. Only Jonathan Taylor and Cooper Kupp had more. He had 1,400 receiving yards. He had the most, the highest yards per reception at 18.2. It's almost 20 yards per reception, and he had 77 receptions, and then also he ran for 365 yards. This is a guy that can do it all, and he is an elite weapon. Tyreek Hill, one of the things that the Chiefs did wrong was they let a very rare skill set go, and that's where they really messed up. The same thing for Deebo Samuel. He is a very rare skill set.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I actually am starting to think Deebo is underrated, just based on the way that I'm seeing people talk about him, the way that you just framed it. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, obviously a freak running back. You take him out of this conversation because it's a totally different position. Right there next to Cooper Kupp, who won the Triple Crown in receiving last year. You know, he did everything for the Super Bowl champion, and Deebo did everything on offense for the San Francisco 49ers, who made it all the way to the NFC Championship game. So I think Deebo is being underrated, which is weird because if you go back and just read Twitter during those 49ers playoff games, you would see people being like, oh my God, this guy's a different beast. He's a different animal. You can't stop him. You know, I forget what game it was or who they were playing, but they went to Deebo on like the most important play of the game. He converted, and everyone's just like, this guy's just a different animal. He's a different beast. Now that we've gotten away from it a little bit, people are forgetting just what a difference maker he is in game. And obviously Russell Wilson likes to press the ball downfield. Now Deebo does a lot after the catch, but he's also a downfield weapon, big time, the way that you just described, 18 yards per reception or whatever it was. So to me, you absolutely try on this. He is that good. He is that much of a difference maker. And if you can't make it work because you don't have first-round picks, well, you got Russell Wilson, so you know you can't complain too much.
And so one of the knocks on Deebo is he's played in 3 seasons. His first year as a rookie, he had 800 receiving yards, 159 rushing yards, just under 1,000 yards from scrimmage. But for a rookie, that is pretty darn good. His next year, he only played in 7 games, so he was hurt. And then last year was his 3rd year in the league. So you could say, well, what about injuries? What about touching the ball too much? Last year, he only touched the ball, and I shouldn't say only, but 136 times. We're not talking about a running back who's touching the ball 350 times and he could get worn down after 2 seasons. He still has tread on his tires, and also he's 26 years old. So you'd be paying him, what, a 4-year deal? Isn't that what Tyreek got? Was it 4 years, $120 million?
Yeah.
So you'd be paying him a 4-year deal that would be expiring right as he's 30 years old. So in terms of, and that's a difference between Tyreek. Tyreek is just about to be 30 years old, where you do worry about the drop-off. And I think, Mace, you mentioned that with Tyreek. What's the drop-off look like when he's 31, 32? You wouldn't have to worry about that with Deebo.
In that window, though, you have to worry about paying Russell Wilson, though.
For sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
But if you have Cortland off the books, then it changes things.
If they take him. And that's the thing. I don't know. The 49ers as an organization philosophically don't believe in paying receivers big money. And that's where I think this impasse is coming from. Deebo wants to reach Tyreek Hill money. Heck, I mean, the guy who maybe reset the market was Christian Kirk.
Yep.
When you look,
everyone should be mad at the Jags.
Yes, they probably should, because you look at that contract, and I mean, even though it's a relatively benign cap figure for this year, when you start doing the average annual value of $18 million a year for a possession number 3 receiver, I'm like, whoa! If he's worth that, what am I worth? That's the universe we've been living in the last 6 weeks.
Yep.
And I mean, I'm not going to begrudge Deebo for seeking this money. I just, in general, when you look also at the history of massive cap expenditures for wide receivers, the teams that have the most tied up in individual receiver, the results aren't all that great.
For sure. I don't understand what the 49ers are doing. It's like, are you in a Super Bowl window or not? Because I think maybe they outperformed their own expectations last year, but that should have told you, okay, we're still ready to go, so let's move forward. Obviously, last year they draft a first-round quarterback with the idea of, I think, kicking the can down the road. Then they go to the NFC Championship game. Now you're going back and you're going to say, okay, we're going to trade away our best player for another pick. Like, what are what's the end game here? You're just going to keep kicking the can down the road?
Also, isn't Deebo the perfect safety net for Trey Lance this year? Of
course.
To help him develop. If Trey's having a tough game, then the way you can get him in a rhythm is by just doing screens to Deebo and just getting him going, doing easy things. And then he's someone that can take so much pressure off Trey. So to me, and especially, you can afford to pay a wide receiver if you're the 49ers right now because you have that cost-controlled quarterback. And pretty much, you could pay Deebo to be cost-controlled, or you could pay him big money while Trey Lance is cost-controlled.
Yep.
You think they just regard what they did as a fluke run? I mean,
Probably.
like the Packer game, for example. I mean, they won that on special teams.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think maybe they look at last year and say it was nice, it was memorable, but ultimately unsustainable.
And I think they're probably right about that. But I agree with what Zach just said in the sense of, you're trying to develop Trey Lance, and then you're going to take away his best weapon by not just a little bit, by every measure.
I mean, if they were, the funny thing is, if they were in a window to pay a wide receiver, it's right now when you have a cost control quarterback for the next 4 years, ideally. But yet they don't seem to be willing. It's curious how they're still not willing to hand the baton to Trey Lance.
Very curious.
It's
Which
also
tells you that maybe something is amiss in his development.
And maybe Deebo is looking at Trey Lance and saying, this guy ain't it. I got to get out of here.
It's also so weird why the 49ers would draft Deebo in the second round, and then he's developed into a way better player than anyone could have thought, and just they're willing to move on 3 years in. Or maybe not, they don't want to move on because clearly Deebo's the one requesting this, but they're not willing to pay him the $30 million. And there was a report that came out today. I don't remember who it was from. I think Rappaport. He said that this is not about money. It's moved beyond that for Deebo. To me, if he were to get $30 million from the 49ers, I think he would be staying and he would take away that trade demand. So money can solve a lot of things.
It also, though, sometimes it becomes personal in these negotiations.
Right.
And some players just don't handle that as well. Obviously, we remember John Elway, Von Miller.
Yep.
It became personal. We had, Cropgate. Von's cropping John Elway out of photos, and, it was this big thing. And I remember there was reports Von's really hurt by just the way that he's been treated in these negotiations. And to Von's credit, signed on the dotted line. It's all in the past, baby.
Yeah.
I love John Elway. He's a legend. And that happens sometimes. Other times, you sit in a room and one side, Deebo side, is telling you, this is how valuable we are. Look at this. You rode us all the way to the NFC Championship game.
Excuse me.
And the other side has no other place to go but to say, no, you're actually not that valuable.
Right.
Look at this metric and this metric that we have that show you're not actually as good as you think you are.
Yep.
And some guys just don't handle that well.
Right.
It's why this is even more prevalent in baseball, where you go to arbitration and there's literally a court case where you get to say I'm great and they have to say no, you suck.
Yep.
And usually teams settle before that happens because they just know you can't move past that.
Yep.
So if you sat down with your girlfriend and she was telling you all the reasons why she thinks you should put a ring on it, and you, instead of saying you're right, I completely agree, it's coming. If you were to say well, there's the dishes, and your cooking is kind of subpar, and this, that, and the other thing.
Good luck later that night.
It's over.
Yeah.
You're done.
Yeah.
So it's not as simple as it seems to do these contract negotiations, and a lot of guys come out of this saying, I don't like these guys anymore. I don't want to play here anymore, and I think that's probably the case here.
Yeah, it probably is. And again, just like with Von, money can solve that. But you would think this would be a big eye-opener for the 49ers to say, okay, what's the number? I think Deebo's brother, when he put it out on Facebook last night, I think he was saying $25 million. I think I saw that. If it's $25 million, sign up right now. Before tomorrow it's $30 million. Before it's $31 million.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think there's a lot going on here. And what's crazy is there was a time in the NFL where things like this didn't result in the player moving. And it was just, just hubbub, and, it stirs the pot for a minute, and then he's back.
The player empowerment era has come to the NFL.
Right. Now we're in
the NBA was on the leading edge of this. And as it's helped the Broncos this year, someday it's going to bite them.
Yeah.
It always eventually it will work against him just as it worked for him this offseason.
Someone in the comments said, "Is Allie going to take that from RK?" I would never say that. She's 10 out of 10 across the board.
There we go. Smart man right there. And especially, Mace, that comes when you have to pay a quarterback and you don't have unlimited money because you're paying a quarterback $50 million. And the Broncos, thankfully, are finally in that spot where they're going to have to pay a quarterback. And when we talk about these numbers, when you have a quarterback for a long time, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want to pay him 50. When you don't have a quarterback for a long time, you wait for the day when you can pay a quarterback $40-50 million.
It's why the dream is still to develop your own quarterback, because you get that window at the start. Because, like, for example, the Chargers are in that window. They're in year 3 of the 5-year window with Justin Herbert, and that's why you've seen even some buzz that, maybe they get in the Deebo Samuel sweepstakes.
Yeah. We'll see. I guess a couple last points on this. One, the number one thing you can't have is him going to Kansas City. You cannot allow that to happen.
Or the Chargers. I think the Chargers would be just as bad.
Both.
Almost just as bad.
I know you don't believe. You've got to be proven that the Chargers aren't going to Charger it, and I get that.
Yep.
But
you don't want them to get him.
The Chiefs didn't make a Super Bowl for 49 years, and then eventually they did, and they went right back. I mean,
of course,
everything is true until it's not.
Until it's not. Yeah, you don't want. I mean, you don't want to go to the Raiders either. You don't want them going in the AFC West. So do whatever you have to do to make sure that, like, if you just have to call up and raise the price erroneously, then just do it. Call and be like, yeah, we'll actually give you all of our picks this year.
Right. And on top of that, all of the AFC West teams do have a little advantage in getting Deebo. They'd be trading him outside of the conference.
Right. Totally. I'm terrified of that.
Yeah.
But here's my other thing is we've seen what Deebo can do with Jimmy Garoppolo. Yeah. What could he do with Russell Wilson? I mean, for real, like, we've seen what Russ can do with Tyler Lockett, who's kind of a niche player, DK Metcalf, who's kind of the same. Like, what could he do with Deebo? And what could Deebo do with Russ? And on the same side, what could Deebo do with Patrick Mahomes or Derek Carr or, Justin Herbert? You do not want him in the division. You do want him on your team. You hope that if it's not going to be on your team, it's also not going to be in the division.
Exactly. You really hope that's the case. And a quick little update, the last like on Instagram that Deebo Samuel had was he liked a photo of him in a Dallas Cowboys uniform with the caption, "Man, you look awesome wearing blue and silver with that star on your helmet."
I feel like everyone likes posts about them going to the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think you're right. We probably had a Von Miller one with that back in 2016.
Totally. That would be a hell of a way to replace Amari Cooper.
It really would be, yes.
And that would be fine with me. Just not here.
Not in the AFC West.
Not in the AFC period. I mean, I don't want to see him pop up in Cincinnati. I don't want to see him pop up in Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean,
Baltimore would be a nightmare.
This is the thing, though. You start going through all these players or all these teams, and you're just like, oh, you don't want him there. You don't want him there. And it's like, how can the 49ers not look at that and be like, oh, we do want him here?
And that's another thing from the Broncos' perspective. If you look around and say you don't want your division rivals to have this guy, that to me says, okay, maybe you don't go all in for him and say, here's Pat Surtain for him, but you say, we got to at least have a seat at the table, right? And we at least have to make a call, because if I don't want you to have him, that means I should probably want him in some capacity.
Absolutely. Do what your opponents don't want you to do.
Yep.
If we don't want them to have him, they definitely don't want us to have him.
Yep. Wait, why don't we want him to have him? Oh, because he's really good? Well, then we should think about having him.
Totally, 100%. Speaking of things that are really good, coming down here to the DNVR bar and watching games. Got Avs tonight. Avs Kraken, I believe, is what we're looking at tonight.
Marshawn Lynch is Kraken.
Yes. Which is sad because I still have a video saved in my phone of Marshawn Lynch skating around in an Avs
sweater. So maybe he's pulling for the Avs tonight.
Maybe. Probably not, though.
He's got skin in the game now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I wish he was, part of the Avs ownership. It'd be way cooler. But, Avs Kraken tonight. Of course, Nuggets Warriors. Game 3 tomorrow. Got to get on the board.
Big game.
Last chance to keep it alive. I think they get it done. Should be a blast here. down at the DNVR Bar. There's no way the Warriors are shooting like that on the road. That's
hope
what I
not.
keep telling
I
myself.
hope not.
Those are famous last words potentially.
Yeah, they seem like the old Warriors again. I feel like the Nuggets are gonna have like some, I don't know, like the league is gonna hate them because they created this monster in the first place.
Yeah.
When the Warriors won their first series
decade ago.
Now I just hope we don't breathe new life into it.
I so agree. And if you want to win $150, regardless of who wins tomorrow night's game, bet $5 on the Nuggets. I guess you could do it on the Warriors too, but bet it on the Nuggets and you'll get $150 in your DraftKings account instantly. Doesn't matter who wins. That's why you can bet on the Nuggets. Get better odds. I think they're plus 105 over at DraftKings right now. And get in on playoff basketball because also you want to start your account with $150 for when the Avs start the playoffs in just over a week. And you can do that by getting $5 into any NBA playoff game in this first round. $150 in your account. And also DraftKings is giving you risk-free bet up to $10 for each day of the first round. So get in on that as well. And the awesome thing about DraftKings is every single day they're giving you new odds boosts, which make it so much fun. So head to the App Store now, download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now, and use promo code DNVR when you sign up to get this $150 in free bets offer. That's code DNVR over at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only. New customers only, minimum $5 deposit. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700.
If you win $150, you can spend some of that on beer. If you come on down to the DNVR Bar, you can get the Breck Brews, and if you're a member, get the big beer for the price of a small beer. But name someplace in the country right now for me.
We're
Someplace
gonna
random.
go with Dover, Delaware.
Dover, Delaware. All right, I'm going on to the Breckenridge Beer website at breckbrew.com, and we're going to look up where to find Breckenridge Brews. 125 results.
Let's
go.
go.
When you type in Dover, Delaware, you may be saying, you guys ever see Wayne's World?
Yes.
Hi, I'm in Delaware.
Yeah.
But you might say that with a little more vim and vigor and pep because you can get some of those delicious Breckenridge brews in Delaware and pretty much anywhere you go in the country. If you want a taste of Colorado, wherever you are in this land, go to the Breck Beer locator. It's at breckbrew.com. That's their website. And you'll be able to find out where you can get those strawberry skies, those vanilla porters, whatever you avalanche ale, whatever you prefer from Breck Brew, you're probably going to find it somewhere nearby. If you want to find that out, check out the Breck Beer locator at breckbrew.com.
I wonder if we have any listeners in Dover, Delaware.
Probably.
Let us know.
I'd say so.
Let us know if you're coming in from Dover, Delaware.
What do you think of when you think of Dover, Delaware?
You know, I used to think that Delaware was just like a social construct, not a real place.
thought you
but
still
I
did.
I have driven through it now.
It's very big in the financial industry because of their tax laws.
Yeah,
There are a lot of corporate headquarters for tax reasons in Delaware.
I'm sure there's like stuff like that in Rhode Island too. I've yet to see Rhode Island in person. Not convinced it's a real place.
Well, maybe you have drove through there. You just didn't realize it was so quick.
It's possible,
Yeah.
but
Well, it's-
Delaware itself is like 3 exits anyway. So I have seen it, and I just think of like the place I've driven by, which is looks very. I don't know.
Our
I don't
president's
wanna
from Delaware. Yeah. I mean, we have a sitting president from Delaware.
Potentially.
Maybe. What do you mean potentially? The current president is from
we
Delaware.
just can't be
It's a
sure. We
place.
can't be sure.
If you're tuning in live from Dover, Delaware, hit us with a comment, say hello. Also, hit us with a thumbs up if you're on YouTube. If you're on Twitter, jump over to YouTube. It's better for us. It's better stream for you. And also, the comment section is popping there. Hit us with a subscribe and turn on alerts so you know when we're going live anytime.
Are there any Broncos players from Delaware all time?
Was Joe Flacco from there, or did he just go to college
He
there?
went to Delaware. I think he's from Philly.
Okay.
Where was Steve Watson from? Remember him?
Yes.
Yeah, I have
Because
no idea where
he
he's
went
from,
to
though.
Temple like Brandon McManus. Steve Watson. He went to high school at St. Mark's High School in Wilmington, Delaware.
Allegedly.
How about that?
Allegedly.
What do you mean allegedly?
He allegedly went to high school in Delaware.
Oh my gosh.
We just can't be sure. We just can't
So
be
maybe
sure.
I guess he's probably the best. What are you from Delaware? Are you Delawarean? A Delawareite? A Delawarean?
Delawarean,
That
yeah.
sounds
Gotta
good.
be.
So
Yeah.
he's probably Steve Watson's probably the best Delawarean in Bronco history.
There you
How
go.
about that? Here's the reason why Broncos fans would not like Deebo Samuel. He had the most drops in the NFL last season at 12.
Oh.
And we know.
How many times was he
Broncos
targeted, though?
fans
What was his
cannot
drop rate?
handle drops.
No, they cannot handle drops. I believe he had like 125 targets.
So that's about that's
10%?
well, 125 targets. It's a little under 10%. Yeah,
Right, like 9.
That's a lot.
it's not
That's a
KJ
lot, a lot.
Hamler level. I mean, KJ
Yeah.
Hamler's got about 20%.
Right, but you'd think you're trying to get the ball in his hands 10 times a game.
He drops one of them.
And he drops one of them.
You know who had a high drop rate back in the day? Wes Welker.
Yes, as did Jerry Rice in his first couple
year.
seasons.
Yes.
So it's not the end of
Deebo's
the
young.
world. It's not the end of the world, but it's definitely something that would drive Broncos fans insane.
would,
I can
yeah.
already hear, how could you pay him all this
Yeah.
money? All he does is drop it.
Yep, as he's also destroying defenders left and right.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. As it relates to Deebo, I guess we can kind of circle back around, but where's the worst place for him to go?
It is KC. In my mind, it is KC because what did we say, or what specifically did I say? Kansas City really messed up trading Tyreek Hill, a player that cannot be replaced. Now, Deebo would not be replacing Tyreek Hill, but he would be adding more to that offense than Tyreek brought. What Tyreek brought to that offense was incredible speed that could not be matched. But Deebo would be adding this element that is pretty much unmatched anywhere else in terms of being able to be all over the field. And you also, when you talk about Deebo, and we were having this conversation in the office before the pod started, Deebo is a guy where if he goes to the wrong system, he's not going to look nearly as good. If he goes to the right offensive mind, oh my gosh, it's going to be bad. And while Kyle Shanahan is fantastic, I think Andy Reid with a guy like Deebo would be even better. So I think we could see even a new version of Deebo unlocked.
And maybe that's where you'd give the slight edge to Kansas City over the Chargers as the place you didn't want him to go, because you give the advantage to Andy Reid over Joe Lombardi running the Chargers offense.
And would everyone in the league agree with this? Other than if they take out who their own division is, no one wants him coming to their division.
Right.
But would everyone in the league say the last place we want to see him is Kansas City?
Yeah.
I think so. If you took away, the Steelers don't want to see him on the Ravens more than they don't want to see him on the Chiefs. But if we were just talking about like the biggest hurdle, if you're trying to get to a Super Bowl, obviously Patrick Mahomes is damn near a lock to get to the championship game every year. If you add Deebo to that team, especially after taking away Tyreek, which we think will set them back quite a bit on offense, if you were able to make that replacement, then you have to find all new ways to defend them. It might actually encourage them to run the ball once in a while. They're paying all that money to a guy who was capable of it. That's the number one scary.
I feel like throughout the NFL, maybe it's just because I'm so close to the AFC West, but throughout the NFL, in the draft, when the Chiefs got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, everyone was saying, don't let Clyde slide to the Chiefs. Now, that was an unproven guy.
Slide.
Hey, don't let Clyde slide. Now, it appears to be okay that everyone let Clyde slide.
Maybe it was
but
just like a trick to trick the Chiefs into drafting him when he was there.
into drafting him. But that was kind of like everyone saying, oh, the Chiefs can't get another weapon. They can't get this guy. Now, that was an unproven guy who didn't turn out to be as scary as people thought. Deebo's not unproven. He's the opposite of that. He's very proven in what he can do. And so now I think it is the same thing, is don't let the Chiefs of all people get that weapon.
Yeah, what's crazy about the whole Edwards-Helaire thing is like even when the Chiefs had prime Kareem Hunt, it was still every time they handed the ball off, they were doing you a favor.
Right. Yeah.
Vance Joseph said it himself.
Yep.
Like we want them to run the ball as much as they can.
Yep.
And to be fair, they lost Kareem Hunt. They stopped running the ball. Clyde Edwards-Helaire puts absolutely zero fear in my heart at all. And it's been a net positive that they drafted him.
I mean, that's what the trade, essentially, the offseason trade of Tyreek Hill for Deebo would do, is it make them more balanced, which in the long run would probably be a good thing for the Chiefs.
Yep.
But it would make them a little less dangerous. Deebo's still really dangerous, but he's a guy that is going to instill fear in your linebackers instead of instilling fear in your secondary that he's going to take the top off of them every single play. And as I say that, you realize he led the league in 18.2 yards per reception, but those are more, I would imagine, are 20 yards instead of Tyreek being, 80.
Yeah, for sure.
Outside the division, like where would you not want him to go?
Baltimore, one that was mentioned.
I'll give you kind of a sneaky one. The problem is they only have a first-round pick. They have pick 42. I wouldn't want to see him in the Colts.
Huh. Why so?
You look at Matt Ryan has proven that if you have a decent scheme and good talent around him, he can be at a high level. He can still be at a pretty high level. I think if you had him with Jonathan Taylor, especially the way you use Deebo Samuel kind of creatively, you use him on some sweeps, some end rounds. I don't know. That's an offense that, because Ryan is good at exploiting the open person, the open option. That's an offense that I think could actually be pretty scary. And they're in a division where they have kind of if they do what they should do against Jacksonville, which they've struggled to do, beat them on the road, but if they take care of business, beat the teams that they're better than, that's a team that could actually push for the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan just doesn't.
I know he doesn't do it. He doesn't do it for you.
That's true.
But let's see what happens when he actually has people protecting him.
For sure.
And a supporting cast. He's not capable of putting the team on his shoulders. But we've seen over the years when he's got a good scheme / play caller, and he's got some support around him, he can get you where you need to go.
Yeah.
To your point, Mace, then the Colts would have 2 of the 3 guys with the most yards for a scrimmage last year. That's scary. I would just like to see Deebo outside of the division and with a quarterback that can unleash him, because like you said, with what he was able to do with Jimmy G, what could he do with a quarterback that's going to unleash him?
Who's the better QB today, Garoppolo or Ryan? Who would you rather have? To me, it's easy. I'd still rather have Matt Ryan.
It's actually tougher than it should be in my mind, because Matt Ryan, he's done nothing. And if you're a great quarterback, you got to eventually carry your team at some point. In the past 4 years, they haven't made the playoffs.
Look at the
They
team
haven't had a winning record?
Yeah, he's basically going through the valley that Drew Brees went through before he bounced back. There was that same moment when the Saints had nothing around him, and they went 7-9, 7-9, 7-9. A very good quarterback can only take you.
7-9.
Yeah, look at what's around him. The team has basically been collapsing over the last few years.
Yeah,
I think he's okay.
I don't know. I don't want either of them. I'm glad I don't have to think about it.
Colts have about $22 million in cap space today as well.
Yeah. I would put the Colts they would be on my list of teams I didn't want to see them go, but they would be below Ravens, Bills, Bengals.
Bills.
I know the Bills are so easily forgotten up there in the corner of the country.
And especially with the Bills at running back right now, where they don't have that deadly running back. Obviously, Deebo wouldn't be their starting running back, but oh my gosh, they would use him all the time in the run game.
Right, because he'd be their best running back.
And you also have a great receiver in Stephon Diggs there, so he wouldn't need to be your number 1 receiver.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I don't like that.
Henry did make a good point in the comments, though, saying if the Chiefs didn't want to pay Tyreek, why would they want to pay Deebo?
And a reason could be because 26 years old for Deebo, as opposed to Tyreek being going into his 30s, and you would be getting Deebo in a 4-year deal for his entire prime. Whereas Tyreek, those last couple of years, you might be getting a Tyreek that's not as fast. And how good is Tyreek if he's not as fast? We don't know yet.
There's 2 years difference between them, but for those, if you give him a 4-year deal, that's a huge difference. We see that kind of thing in baseball a lot, where we're going to go with a guy who's a couple years younger. Maybe he's a notch lower, but he's younger, and so we think he's going to age better than maybe player A, who's better but older.
Yeah.
It also, in a vacuum, if you gave me Deebo Samuel or Tyreek Hill, I'd also take Deebo Samuel because he doesn't have the issues surrounding him.
I think that Mike McDaniel is probably going into his GM's office and just saying, hey, is it possible?
Oh, my goodness. Could you imagine that? Waddle, Hill, you have Gesicki, you have Deebo. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
They have over $19 million in cap space.
Insane.
The only problem is that they don't have a first-round pick right now.
They
don't. They actually. Gosh,
That'd be great for my guy Tua.
There.
Tua would be looking great.
Yeah, it would be like he's back at Alabama
Yeah,
throwing to
it
Devontae
seriously
Smith,
would be.
Jerry
Yeah,
Jeudy,
they have
Jameson Williams.
they have a similar problem as the Dolphins do in terms of
Actually, Williams probably didn't overlap.
yeah.
Quite so much.
You know when the Dolphins'
Right.
first pick is, fellas? 102.
Wow. What about next year? Do they have a first next year?
I believe they do because
Yeah, they didn't trade it this
tra-
year.
they traded everything this year to get Tyreek Hill.
Could you imagine?
It was the 1, 2, and 4 this year. Actually, Miami. Part of the deal was Miami got a 4th round pick next year, and a 6th rounder next year. But they have their full complement of early round picks next year.
I just know, Mike McDaniel loves Deebo. He's got to at least knock on the door and say,
Yep.
Do you think he would have made the deal for Tyreek Hill if he would have known Deebo Samuel would come available a month later?
Yes.
I mean, I would hope so.
Yes, because there's no one like Tyreek.
I don't
and
know.
especially paired with Waddle,
I don't
that
know
could
that-
be unstoppable.
I don't know that he would have. I think if he'd had the choice of both of them, he would have gone with the guy that he's worked with.
Maybe he just goes for both.
They just have no defensive players anymore because they've traded them all away.
It's a scoring league.
Yeah, it is. And
Gotta
Mike
score.
McDaniel's offensive guy.
Right, exactly.
And Vic
He's a-
Fangio would never make that move.
I can put up 35 a game.
Yeah.
The defense is going to give up less than that.
That get him a lot more primetime games. That's
And
for sure.
Tua can, play point guard.
Yep. Oh, we know he can. He's a superstar.
I wouldn't go that far. But I liked him before his little resurgence at the end of the season. Like, remember there was that quick little conversation, would you trade for him?
Yep.
In that world, I would have done it.
Yep, I agree.
But that would be insane.
I would have been really happy with the Broncos getting Tua this offseason, and Russ is like leaps and bounds better than him. So Broncos came out, like we all said, Broncos came out with the best possible quarterback of anyone they could take.
Yep.
Should we hit our player prospect
Let's do it.
series? Continue that, and we're going to Greg Dulchich from UCLA, tight end, 6'4", 243 pounds, according to our draft guys. His strengths: potential to be a dynamic, complete wide tight end by the end of his rookie contract, ability to create space as a route runner and break tackles after the catch. Now, his weaknesses: inconsistent as a run blocker, contested catch skills are also a question. And to me, guys, I'm out on Greg at pick 64, even in day 3. And the reason is he's kind of like a light Albert O. And what I mean by that is he's more of a receiver, but he runs a 40 and 6 or in 4.65. Remember, Albert O is a sub 4.5 guy.
Yep.
He developed as a receiver, but he's really a possession receiver as a tight end. The Broncos don't need that. What they need is an all-around guy, and I like how our draft guy said he could be an all-around receiver by the end of his rookie deal. It's not what the Broncos are looking for. Albert O at that point could be an all-around tight end at that point as well. So this is not a guy that would fit what the Broncos need at the tight end position right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to go tight end at this area, I like Jelani Woods. He's just an absolute freak, like even more of a freak than Julius Thomas was coming out. I believe he actually has the highest RAS score in the history of tight ends. So
Was it a 10?
yes, perfect 10.
We know how Peyton likes the RAS guys.
George Paton.
Yes,
George Paton
yeah.
likes those guys who score high athletically.
And, I mean, again, we talk about how these are dependent positions, especially wide receiver, but tight end as a wide receiver is also a dependent position. But that conversation is irrelevant to me now because you have the thing that they depend on. You have the quarterback. So all of the values of tight ends and wide receivers and that sort of thing, which are dependent on the quarterback, are back up. When Trevor Siemian is your quarterback, you question whether you should pay Demaryius and Emmanuel at the same time because those are dependent positions and you don't have the thing they depend on. But now you don't have to question it because you have that thing. So their value is exactly what you want it to be. As for Dulchich, just doesn't do anything for me. He wasn't necessarily dynamic when I saw him live. Like you said, he's Alberto. He's a poor man's Alberto, and that might even be putting it nicely.
Yeah, poor man's Alberto without the ability to have the ceiling of what Alberto can be. So it's not even like he can develop into that. So I'm out on him. I wish him the best. But if the Broncos go tight end at 64, it's got to be a day one starter, because you do have a lot of potential with Alberto there to develop him. And so if you're going, I mean, to me, Trey McBride, if he's there, he's a day one starter over Alberto.
Yeah, I think that's certainly a possibility. And you also have Tomlinson, who I feel like just needs a nickname for like how big he is.
Tomlinson, the tackle.
Yeah.
Tackle
I mean,
Tomlinson.
I would say Big Country, but that was Bryant Reeves back in the day.
Yeah, but a lot of these names get recycled. Is he from the country?
I don't know what his background is.
It looks like
He looks like he would be out on the eastern plains with some land, baling some hay,
Yes.
running a farm.
Absolutely.
I mean, he looks like he would have been perfect with the 2000 Broncos offensive
He
line.
should be wearing a Peterbilt hat or something. I mean, like,
yeah.
Carhartt.
Yeah.
anyway. But the thing with Dulchich is there's nothing that's particularly dynamic about him.
Yeah.
And last year, he had a little bit of a drop problem, but he literally only dropped one pass in the previous 3 seasons. So I'm willing to kind of give him a pass on that and say, okay, thank you. That's an outlier. But I like the ceiling of Jelani Woods a lot better. I would rather, instead of taking Dulcich at 64, if you can get Jelani Woods at pick 96, that's a real good play, I think.
Maybe I'm skewed by our DNVR Madden League. There's like in that world, there's no way Jelani Woods falls to the 3rd round.
No.
Another thing on Dulcich, to me, he's 243. He's not a big tight end. Jelani Woods, he's 6'7", but he's also 269. I mean,
Yeah.
Well, and
He's insane.
And Dulcich isn't a blocker either. So it just doesn't make sense if you're getting a light Alberto that doesn't block.
Yeah.
Or I mean, he's willing blocker, but he's not a good blocker.
All right. I think we that's enough on him.
Good luck wherever you go.
Yes, exactly.
what if he goes here?
Then we'll
Good luck.
See, that's the thing.
We'll find a way to talk ourselves into it.
Exactly. We're having these discussions now. Inevitably, what happened when they pick that guy is like, well, but this is the reason why he's going to succeed.
I just don't think he makes. I don't think George is gonna fall in love with him.
I'll never forget the Nuggets guys on a draft night did like a who do you not want, and like multiple of them said Zeke Najee, and they picked Zeke Najee.
How about that? If you want someplace good to go, check out our friends over at Light Shade Dispensary, and they're great. But they just opened their biggest and best store yet. It's their Barnum location, 1 block off 6th and Federal. It's the biggest store ever, and they have products that are not sold at other stores that are only sold there. And guys, it is 420. No better time to celebrate than over at Light Shade Dispensary, because for the next week they're offering their 5 best-selling products. Buy one, get one for $1 over at Light Shade Dispensary, and they've got something for everyone, including Ripple, which is a fast-acting dissolvable, and it's clinically proven to hit 2 times faster than the leading gummy. It starts absorbing within 10 minutes.
Literally hits different.
Yes, it does. And so you can get a consistent experience every single time. So check out Ripple. Check out all the products they have over at Light Shade Dispensary to celebrate 420. And use code DNVR whether you're online or in one of their stores to get 25% off all non-sale items. That's Light Shade. Use code DNVR.
Big holiday over at Light Shade
It
today.
is. Yes, it's the day.
Big day for them. Okay, we have any super chats we need to get to here? Nope. All right, no super chats. Let's jump in to the comments from the listeners. I feel like I had something I wanted to say, and I just blanked on it.
Well, we want to know.
I forgot. Maybe it was something in relation to the comments, but I can't see those right now.
So should we hop into the
Let's
comment
do it.
section?
Let's hop into the comment section.
All right. And of course, to leave your comments, go to thednvr.com. At the top of the screen, there's a podcast tab. Click on that. Click on Broncos Podcast. All of our podcasts will pop up. Click on the top one and then scroll to the bottom of that. And that is where you can leave your comments. And let's get to the people who have done that for this show.
I remember what it was. And Henry may either he might agree with this take, but he's not going to like it.
Uh-oh.
I think my official draft crush is Troy Anderson out of Montana State. Also scored a perfect 10.
He did.
On
did.
relative athletic score.
on the RAS. The highest rated, tied for the highest rated linebacker ever based on that score. And his whole story is amazing. You know, all conference at multiple different positions, different sides of the ball, 2-time All-American.
What about the fact that you'd have 2 Montana State linebackers on your roster if you had
Singleton,
them?
yeah.
Because Singleton's a Bobcat. That's what the Bobcats, right? Montana
Yes,
State?
yes, Montana State
Oh, I
Bobcats.
guessed right.
And Chad Muma has been a hot name specifically around here, but also in the draft community. He could go in that second round potentially before the Broncos pick. If that happens and you really like him, Troy Anderson could be that great backup with potentially a higher ceiling.
Yep. I'm trying to remember who the other guy that scored a 10 on it was. He was a beast.
This year or in the
No,
past?
no, just all time. There's only been 2 linebackers ever to do it. And it's Troy Anderson and one other guy, but I'm blanking on who that guy
Let's
was.
see if we can find out here.
Ray Lewis.
No. Gosh, I don't know.
All right, I've got the RAS
All-time rankings.
Lorenzo Carter and Manning Lawson.
Okay, well, maybe I was wrong on that then.
But I'll tell you, my guy Leo Chanel scored a 9.99.
Yes.
In this year's class.
Pretty good.
You know,
Pretty
he
darn
can
good.
get all over the place.
Are you saying his score, or are you saying don't, no?
I'm saying absolutely pick Leo Chanel out of Wisconsin. Yeah.
You're saying 9.
9.99
There
and
we
10.
go.
We're really splitting hairs.
We
there.
are splitting hairs.
Yeah,
I
I think you'd be happy with Anderson. I think you'd be happy with Chanel.
I assume those, Anderson goes a little earlier. Maybe
Yeah.
not, though.
You could get Leo Chanel at pick 75.
You could, potentially. But yeah, I just had to get that off. I think he's the dream.
There we go. I love it.
Him, Ojabo.
Hey, don't break these
Oh.
up. We're gonna get into these next week.
All right,
To
all
our
right,
guys.
all right.
But
Fair enough.
I like Ojabo too.
Yeah. Luke Kuechly got 10 too.
Okay, there we go.
There
That
By the
sounds
way,
more like where I was
Baron
going.
Browning.
guy.
By the way, Baron Browning and 9.98.
Wow.
We know how physically talented he is.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't always work out with these crazy athletic guys. But if you just stack a roster full of guys who are scoring insanely high on their RAS, you're going to have some significant advantages in places.
Yes, you are. You are. Should we jump into the comment section now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Coming in from Emo Klein says, come on, guys. Believe Peyton did what he did in free agency, so he believes he didn't have any high needs and could draft BPA or at least BPA from RT, edge, tight end, cornerback, linebacker, DL. And that's kind of what we were saying, was he has a lot of options yesterday. He says, Zach, Ronald Darby has been a starting cornerback for a lot longer than 1 year. No, what I said yesterday was he's only started a full season once. When he's played, he's been a starting quarterback, but he's only been a starter for an entire 16-game season, or 17 games if you include last year, once. And what I meant by that was you're silly for counting on him to play an entire 17-game schedule this year. You got to have some depth there to replace him when inevitably, and I'll touch wood here, when he gets hurt.
Right, totally. Next one's from Mark IT Snatch. Surely a franchise with a history that San Francisco has must have at least one Hall of Fame snub. Who comes to mind?
Recent example, Patrick Willis, although I think he gets in eventually. But I think you go back to the 1980s and a guy who I believe had the first 1,000 season, 1,000-yard rushing, 1,000-yard receiving, and really kind of revolutionized the receiving back, and that's Roger Craig. Remember seeing the clips? He had kind of the high knee pump.
Yep.
They'd run through people. There was a stretch where he was a dominant running back in that offense, obviously. Didn't hurt having Joe Montana throwing passes. But I'm surprised, given how he really established a template for pass-catching backs that came after him, that he hasn't gotten the due from the Hall of Fame. Now he's in the seniors pool. But I think if you revisit kind of his place in the evolution of the running back position, he'd be worthy of being in the Hall of Fame.
Mark IT Snatch always wants to talk about not Broncos, and I just don't have that many takes. So last time I said Jake Plummer, who was a Cardinal turned Bronco. This time I will choose DJ Jones, a 49er
There
turned
we
Bronco.
go. I love it. And I got to say, Patrick Willis reminds me, and of course my brain thinks the same way, Bronco reminds me of Al Wilson.
Yeah.
And I mean, just dominant when they played. And the issue for both of them, they didn't have that long of a career. Now, Patrick Willis did have a long career and hung it up on his own terms, but both when they played, absolutely dominant inside backers.
This one's from Nacho Brad, who says, Fam, I have no questions. I have no concerns. I have nothing but joy and hope. Where are my OGs at? Ryan Clayman, Spacebar, Andy, fire up your 300 baud modems. Bring up your Netscape browser and let's see how let's show these youngsters how it's done. I will donate $1 to the Ryan and Zach World Tour Fund for every OG that emerges. LFG. Last in relevance, but first in your hearts. Nacho Brad.
Let's go, Nacho Brad. Love hearing from you. I may have to donate a dime now that Nacho Brad's in here.
The artist formerly known as Burrito Brad.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, if we're gonna be on Netflix, we're gonna use the Lycos search engine.
Oh, on Netscape, you mean?
Yeah, on Netscape. Yeah, we're gonna.
I don't even know what that is.
We're gonna bring back MySpace here.
I do know what that is. Did you have a MySpace, Mace?
Way back, yeah.
My
Way
Mace?
back. There we go. My Mace.
There was a MySpace. I didn't really like it.
Did you have a top 8?
No. I didn't have a Friendster account though.
Oh, that one
Never
came
heard
and
of that.
gone before I was on there.
Apparently, there were some pockets of the world where Friendster was big.
Yep.
Wow.
And then I downloaded a lot of music on Napster before that fountain got shut down.
Top 8. What a terrible idea that was.
Seriously,
Just
way to
make people feel bad.
Yep. And you're always gonna make someone bad.
And then I remember you could like expand it at one point. You could go to like top 24.
You're still gonna hurt someone's feelings.
Exactly. Number 25 feels really bad.
Yep. They're like, wow.
I couldn't even make it in the top 24.
Right, exactly. Yep.
From Talking Schmidt. Hey guys, here's a long one for you. Sorry, I'll keep the rest of them short. I forgot I was able to comment here, but thanks to Zach on today's pod, I'm here now. I'm moving out to Denver this summer to intern at a PR company in the downtown area. I've been listening to the podcast for a couple years now, and I love it every day. I'm absolutely going to come to the bar this May and check it out as I turned 21 last August. I'm super excited. I'll stop rambling. So here's my 2-part question for you gentlemen. Also, definitely come for an Avs
Yes,
playoff game.
can't wait.
Which receiver do you think Russell Wilson is most excited to play with, and which receiver hits 1,000 yards first? I know Sutton did it before 2019, before in 2019, but I'm saying the first to do it with new superstar quarterback Russell Wilson. LOL cheesy, I know. P.S. I fell to my knees and put my hands in prayer when I found out we traded for Russell Wilson. My girlfriend looked at me in awe, and I couldn't hear her talking for a minute at least. My best friend is a Packers fan, so when I found out that Rodgers was going back to Green Bay, he was clowning me until my prayers were answered. Thanks, guys. Go Broncos, and let's ride.
Oh, let's ride. Love hearing from you, Talking Schmidt. Okay, who is the receiver Russell Wilson is most excited to play with?
Just going to go with the guy you keep saying first, Tim Patrick.
Yeah.
It's really hard to disagree with that.
He just, for whatever reason, you say wide receiver, he thinks Tim Patrick. There's got to be something behind that.
Yep, I would think so. Now, who's the receiver that has a different skill set than what he's ever played with? Is it Jerry Jeudy?
I would say so, yeah.
So that's how I would make the argument for Jerry Jeudy is Russ has never played with a guy like that.
Has he ever played with a guy as fast as KJ Hamler?
Lockett, where does Lockett rank on that
Not
speed
there.
scale?
I mean, Hamler's speed is special.
Yeah.
The vertical speed. Now, obviously, there's a lot of other refinements to his game that he needs to make, and he's got to stay healthy to begin with. But I think once they get some time together, he may start thinking, ooh, especially with how I like to go deep. The problem is, until he shows he can stay healthy, you can't trust him to be out there.
It's crazy to think the Broncos have the best deep ball thrower in the NFL.
Yep,
Like,
that is.
KJ Hamler could instantly become a star overnight if he stays healthy because Russell Wilson's the guy who's just going to drop it into the bucket all the way down there.
He could instantly become a $20 million receiver this year. $20 million plus.
Yeah, I mean, that would be crazy. But he could catch 7 touchdowns, like 50-plus yards. Like, it's not out of the question.
In the first 7 games, he could have 6 touchdowns.
It's crazy to say it, but just watch Russ highlights the way that if you're beat your man, the way that he can drop that ball in there. And KJ should be able to run by guys all day.
Yep. That should be the first play of the Russell Wilson era, is a deep ball to KJ. Because how much tape is there of KJ running deep? Now, obviously, teams are going to know he's fast, but if you just slide him on the field on that first play, I don't think teams are immediately going to think, oh, this is a deep ball to KJ Hamler on the first play with Russ.
When do we get to know the schedule? I want to know like what the personnel is out there so I can start planning out this first play.
Just a couple of weeks.
I don't want to. It's
Week
before
or-
the draft?
week
No,
or
I mean,
two
sorry,
after
it's
the
after the
draft.
draft.
It's about
Right,
looking like May 10th to May 12th.
I thought it was before the draft. That makes me sad.
It
used to
has
be.
been
They've
before, but
moved
2
it.
years ago
Yeah.
they switched it to after.
Because they needed to keep the NFL relevant in all blocks of time.
Exactly. We don't need to talk about schedule before the draft because we got draft to talk about. We actually could talk schedule now because of the draft's not that important, but the NFL has no problem talking draft.
That's how I know I'm, just an NFL loving sheep. And I'm just like, yes, give me the schedule that I already know all the teams.
Yep,
but
it's so true.
Damn it, I can't wait to find out when those games are.
It may be the most stupid thing out there, but we all eat it up.
It's not like I'm eating it up because I know it creates content. I'm like truly eating it up.
Right.
I love it.
Yep, me too.
All right, let's move on here. Melbourne Bronco says, my boys, I follow a Broncos fan page on Facebook where a question was asked. Who are the most underrated Broncos in history? Love to hear your thoughts. Cheers and let's ride.
Maybe you talk about the Ring of Fame snubs, right? And say, okay. Like Trevor Price, for example, was a 3-time first-team All-Pro. And I feel like he's been forgotten. I think
sat behind him in a Nuggets game once. He was really nice.
Yeah,
Did you see the game?
Yes.
You sat behind him?
Yes.
Oh, that's
because
nice.
he's what, like 6'5"?
Yeah, he wasn't too huge.
Yeah. Okay. So someone like Trevor Price, you go back kind of further into Broncos history. I mentioned Steve Watson earlier in the show. Steve Foley is the all-time leader in interceptions in Broncos history. He hasn't gotten in the Ring of Fame yet.
Ed McCaffrey.
I don't understand that.
Yep. I'm trying to think of who else still isn't.
I'm
in
not
there.
sure Al Wilson is underrated, even though he's not in the Ring of Fame, and he should be.
I thought he got in.
But he's beloved by the fans. Like, if you say Al Wilson on social media, people perk up in a way that they don't, for
Especially
example,
me.
with Trevor Price or Steve Watson.
Right.
If Al Wilson isn't in, it's
criminal that he's not in.
It's him or Trevor Price, in my opinion.
Yep. I agree. Now, what about on the team right now? Most underrated player on the team right now?
Kareem Jackson.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Josie Jewell.
And I'll go new Bronco, DJ Jones. And maybe that's because people don't know him as well, but I think he's going to be very loved here.
Now that he has the bag, it completely changes, though. It's like really hard for him to be underrated with it while he's getting paid all that much.
That's a good point. And kind of on the flip side with Kareem Jackson, he had all that money and was playing well, but now he's making little, in quotes, money. And so he doesn't have to do all that much to live up to it.
Yeah, Kareem for me is like, he impacts every game.
To me, he impacts the Broncos defense like a Pro Bowler.
100%. And he's a guy who the Broncos would just let walk around and talk to every team in the NFL the last couple of years before bringing him back. It's crazy to me because I'm thankful they got him back, but he is such a game changer. The way that he just asserts himself inside of a game is so rare to me. And I'm super thankful he's back, but I feel like he's next to Justin Simmons. I think that hurts him because Justin is just such a fan favorite. But I think sometimes he impacts the game more than Justin.
And I think he also makes Justin a better player
100%.
as well. And you have a huge value in him, so making sure Justin's the best he can be is important.
What year will this be of those two playing next to each other? 4?
Yep.
Hopefully we don't have to hear about miscommunication issues in the first 4 weeks again.
Seriously, I hope not. Roy Donk says, I feel giddy every time I see Russell Wilson and Broncos grab putting in work at the Broncos facility. I also can't help but notice his 3 brand. Surely his intention, 100% his intention. It seems like every big NFL star has their own brand these days. I was wondering if the NFL resident historian Andrew Mason knows the first NFL player to create their own brand. Let's ride.
I've never given that any thought. I don't know who would have had their own brand. I mean,
Did Joe Montana?
I don't recall any brand that he had.
Speaking of brands from legends, John Elway has obviously Steakhouse. He's got Sevens Wine. He just launched, I think,
had the car
yesterday.
dealership.
Oh, he has the car dealership. Maybe that was part of one of the first. And he just launched his own investment company. He is building himself quite the brand, which is touching restaurants, it's touching alcohol, it's touching car dealerships, and it's touching investment management. I mean, he's reaching everywhere.
He never wore his own gear, though. That's like it's funny that specific thing was not something he went into.
Well, yeah. I mean, he doesn't really... Yeah, exactly. Gear isn't really in his world.
That's what you think of. When you think of brand, it's a logo that...
I don't understand this new thing where every player has to have their own logo.
Joe Flacco had a logo, remember?
Forget
Garrett
that.
Bowles has a logo.
Cody Latimer had a logo.
DeMarcus Walker had a logo.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Living legend, baby.
I don't understand that. Like, I get Russell Wilson having his own brand. I get Tom Brady having his own brand. But you got to be at a certain level. Like, I love that in basketball, if you have a signature shoe, that means you're like the top of the top, you know?
Right. That's why Russell Westbrook has one.
Look, you have
Top.
like Graham
Does
Mertz,
he?
the quarterback of
I
Wisconsin,
don't think so.
has his own brand. It's been mocked because he was terrible for long stretches of last year.
Right.
But there is a GrahamMertzShop.com sells Graham Mertz branded merchandise, T-shirt.
Yeah, I mean,
T-shirts.
secure the bag. Like, if you're a college kid, I get it. That's one thing that I feel like college kids should be looking into more with the NIL stuff is like, you can just create your own things. Now that you're able to do that, like,
I wonder how much these are selling though. I mean,
well, not if you're
I can
if you're
say
not
this.
good, not a
Yeah,
lot. But if you're great,
when I was at a Wisconsin-Nebraska game, I can tell you, I did not see one person at Camp Randall Stadium in my walkabouts or if they're around the campus wearing any Graham Mertz branded merchandise.
What's cool is if you went to a game at CU, you would have seen tons of people wearing like our Nate Landman stuff,
Love it.
our Philip Lindsay stuff,
Yep.
Yeah.
all that. So that's pretty cool.
Yep. It is really cool.
Where were we going with that? I don't remember.
I don't know.
We have another
First
comment,
player
though.
with a brand.
Oh, first player with a brand.
yes.
Yeah, and I mean, I can think of golfers with brands back in the day. Like there was a Jack
Ben
Nicklaus,
Hogan,
and there was Ben Hogan, but
Walter Hagen. Yeah.
but I can't think of the first football player with a brand.
We have a super chat coming in. Should we hit that
Yeah,
right
let's hit
now?
that real quick.
It's coming in from Jordan. He says, first time watching you guys live. Let's go. RK Mason, Zach, thanks for the content. Let's go get Trey McBride, then best offense in the West. Jordan, I love it. And speaking of DNVR athletes, Trey McBride, man, as a Bronco, I'd be all for it.
As would I. From Howler
All
Broser.
for a CSU Ram.
Yep. Once they graduate, or if they become a DNVR athlete.
And to be fair, a Colorado native, which
Yep.
I know you can get behind.
100%. Howler Broser, just dropping a comment here to say that I love all three of you do. You all bring something different to the table when the show is at its best, and when all three of you are on. Mace, ignore the haters on YouTube. Everyone in this crew loves your presence. The irony is that if it was just Zach and RK as locals fans, the same people and trolls would be complaining that there's no different perspective on things. Just wanted to say keep it up, all of y'all.
Love you,
Appreciate
Howler
it.
Bro,
Thank
sir.
you.
Appreciate it. Bronco Tiz, why would Deebo want out of San Francisco? Maybe he believes that his stats were reliant on Mike McDaniel. Maybe Kyle makes a trade to the East Coast that includes his childhood little brother in Christian McCaffrey. Let's see how Deebo does with Sam Darnold. Whatever we do, do not overpay. I bet Hamler or Judy could produce similar stats if we just hand off that jet sweep every once in a while and have better play design and QB play. Yeah, you definitely lost me there.
What would happen if and I love Jerry Judy, and I think KJ Hamler's talent is incredible, but those guys cannot do what Deebo Samuel does. They can do other things maybe better than Deebo Samuel. Jerry Judy can run routes better than Deebo. KJ Hamler's speed is better than Deebo, but if those guys try to truck defenders like Deebo does, they will miss games. Touch on what? I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, just totally different brands of players. I even saw someone posted like, Mom, can we have Deebo Samuel? No, we have Deebo Samuel at home, and it was a picture of Jerry Judy. And I'm like, that makes no sense. They're not comparable in any way.
Very different. Yes.
It's the whole thing of, well, okay, let's, I'm not saying don't get Deebo Samuel because you have Jerry Judy. I'm saying don't get Deebo Samuel because you're going to have to pay Russell Wilson. And again, the history of highly paid wide receivers individually as a percentage of the cap is not great.
Should the Broncos just say, man, we like this Deebo idea. We're just not going to be able to afford it. Let's go get Laviska Shenault.
But then who are you taking off the field?
It's just rotating.
Just rotating.
Sometimes it's Visca, sometimes it's KJ, sometimes it's Jerry, sometimes it's Tim.
Nice buy low option. I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah, and I was going to say, if you buy low, yep.
Well, I think you would. Now, I do think the reason the Jags haven't traded him yet is because they don't want to sell low.
Maybe Deebo can help his trade value. You see Deebo go for a first and also a $30 million contract, and the Jags say, okay, now some team will be willing to give up a second because it's less than Deebo by a lot, but also you're only going to be paying him on his rookie deal still.
Yeah, I mean, second would be, it's hard to get what you spent on a guy.
It is.
So if you're willing to move on from him, it means not everything went well. You spent a second on him. The best you can probably get is a third, and I bet you people aren't even offering that right now.
Yep. And I mean, we see just how players go for so much less than you think. Aqib Talib for a fifth, it's like, what are we doing here? But it's just, that's how the NFL is with players.
If the Broncos wanted to give a third for Visca, I'd be it.
75?
Yeah, and he can be your backup running back. Just in the way that you can use that with that way with Deebo.
You fill that hole there, and then you also have Mike Boone if you want a more traditional running back. That's interesting.
I'm in on it.
It's interesting. Of course you are.
Anything else that we got to get to?
I think we hit it all.
All right, that sounds great. That is going to wrap it up for us today. This has been great. Thanks for all of your comments. Appreciate you, Zach. Appreciate you, Mace. Appreciate you, Kale. Hit us with a thumbs up on your way out on YouTube, and we will catch you tomorrow on the DNVR Broncos podcast.